So the first question was, is the garbage issue addressed in rural areas of the country as well? And the second is the health and hygiene issues of the workers who are the divers, right, in the garbage. My answer to the first question would be yes, there are efforts in the rural areas. As a matter of fact, there is a short part where they talk about La Placeta. So this happens in the mountains, in the middle of the country. It's not in the capital. Maybe there aren't so many efforts as in the capital, and to tell you the truth, the problem is maybe not so critical. There is a problem, but the biggest problem right now are really the slums. You've seen a lot of pictures of the slums and how terrible it is. And we have concentrated on that, and Amy can maybe just complete my answer after that. And the answer to the second question, I kind of expected that question about the hygiene and the health. But I must say, and I don't want to be very harsh, but it's a very different world. And for those of you who have lived in Latin America or developing world in general, and then you come here and, you know, you have to use a helmet and wash your hands when you go in and you go out. When you go to developing countries, you see very precarious conditions. And these same people who are working as divers, if you go to the places where they live, their places probably have the same hygienic and health challenges that are over there. We were aware when we shot that this is not the best example of how people should employ their lives and how they should be living. But I guess in those circumstances, out of the worst worlds, it's a little bit a better world because it's contributing to the society. It's giving them a better chance to earn their money. And sincerely, for those people who live in the slums, these issues are present at home almost at the same level.
So with regard to the rural areas, she mentioned La Placeta, so it was one of the first pilot projects the Japan cooperation brought in. And we have the Recrearte program, which is also an initiative of the GFDD, and we do, the video at the end said we had 20 workshops to date. That was only in the first year. Just this month, we've had more than 17 workshops. So we're taking Berta Santana, the character that you saw in the film, and she goes to a lot of these schools in rural areas and educates children and women's groups on how to reduce their consumption and how to recycle. With regard to the health situation, I know that they're right now in the midst of working on a law, an integrative law on waste management in the country, and one of the things they're trying to do there is to encourage the dumpster divers to form unions or cooperatives so that they're better covered under some of these health laws, and they can at least seek some medical assistance in case they are impacted by their work.
There are two questions about the first movie. And the second question was about the divers, whether they are promoting recycling in their communities. And the first was about the pellets, whether they are actually then used in the DR or exported, or whether they can be applied in Haiti. As far as I know, the pellets are exported, right? Because we don't have the facilities, unfortunately. As I say, you know, I think one of the benefits, and this is kind of my personal opinion, of seeing this movie is also to see how big challenges there are in countries like that. And we are completely aware. Now, if you calculate the carbon footprint of the transportation of the pellets, it's not ideal. Of course it's not. But it's such a big hurdle for developing countries. You know, there are so many issues. And it's really hard just to push things forward. And one of the reasons we made this movie is actually to inspire people and to celebrate people who have the strength and capacity to move forward with all the hurdles there are. And then about the divers, do you have any?
One of the examples that the film shows is Fundación Escoba. There's other cooperatives like Funsa Sursa, and they actually have contracts with the city council or the city hall, whereby they, in exchange for money, they bring in the garbage from the rivers that they collect, and they do a lot of, they use the money that they get from the contracts to do a lot of community work, which includes raising awareness. It was mentioned in the film, but they do weekly gatherings with community members where they bring in the trash, so they're taught how to separate the inorganic from the organic, and they come in and, you know, I've been to a lot of these organizations, and that you see even 80-year-old women come out with their little bags of trash, and they're actually given a little bit of a monetary reward for bringing it in. So they are doing a lot of work at the community level, trying to raise awareness and educate the communities.
I think one of our observations has been that Hispaniola as an island with two countries and two very distinct cultures is a really unique case study that, you know, you look at this conflict over natural resources, and as you mentioned, the history of the two places have led them to where they are in certain respects. But we think that this is a unique case study is applicable to other places and to other bordering countries. And so kind of the idea that we have is to really make people more aware of this issue and the potential conflict and consequences it can have, and then lead that into efforts to try and do something about it. You know, we don't pretend to form a foundation or do work on the border ourselves, but rather there are institutions doing work. And we think, you know, much like in one of the films where they mentioned this campaign for 4%, this was a big initiative in the Dominican Republic where the citizens became incensed that in the Constitution there's 4% of the GDP is supposed to be dedicated to education, and it wasn't. And so the citizens took to the street and started campaigning until it became a reality. And so our idea with the film in some ways is that if people are given information, if they're made aware of this, you know, critical issue that's happening, that you can create some kind of movement. And frankly, it has to be on both sides. There's a major consumption issue on the Haitian side, where there's the statistics we've heard is in 1 month the Dominican Republic consumes the same amount of natural gas as all of Haiti in a year. So there really is an issue that's on a much bigger scale of how do you provide fuel for an entire country. And then on the Dominican side, you know, there needs to be better patrolling of the national parks and protected areas, and there needs to be efforts to try and figure out solutions for some of the folks that are doing the smuggling and production. So we think that there's a lot to be done, obviously, and it's a very complicated issue, and it's these two countries that are, you know, sometimes a contentious relationship. But we think that the more people are aware of what's happening, the more possibility there will be of something positive coming out of it.
Yeah, actually, there's no law with a plastic bag. But I think Dominican people don't really think that plastic bags is bad. They really need the plastic bags for their lives. They think that. So, because all the supermarkets and all the stores give you not one plastic bag, give you like 20 or 15. It's crazy, but it's the reality. So I think that we got to educate people first and say that plastic is not good for the environment. And then say that, well, like work with the government and making a law or something like that. I think it's gonna be quickly. It's gonna last.
I just wanted to add to your answer, just so that people have an idea. I remember an incident maybe 6 years ago. I went to a pharmacy and I bought something that was so tiny, and they gave me a plastic bag, and I said to the lady, "No, it's okay, I don't need a plastic bag." She said, "No, you have to take it." I said, "No, I don't need a plastic bag." She says, "Well, my manager will get very angry if I deliver something without a wrapping or a plastic bag." So she had to go to the back. She had to talk to the manager and get the permission to give me something without a plastic bag. So this is, okay, 6 years ago, but this is where we're at. It's considered a sign of good customer service. It's considered a sign of respect. It's considered a sign of good customer relations. It's something, so we are dealing with a mentality like maybe here after the Second World War, when I remember we would all go and be so happy, you know, getting 20 plastic bags, and we would keep them because and throw them away because it was free and pretty. And so there is a lot of work to be done in the mentality.
¿Te respondo en español o en inglés? Bueno, yo creo que hay una sinergia entre todas las cosas que tú dijiste ahora mismo, que es lo que está funcionando. I think there's a synergy between between money, between economy, and between social education. Entonces, por ejemplo, la premiación Globo Verde es una iniciativa que está teniendo la República Dominicana de reunir una cantidad de jóvenes e incentivar a la realización de audiovisuales para el medio ambiente. So I think that the Globo Verde Award is an initiative from GFDD to get together all the youth and to let them express some environmental issues and put it on the screen. So I think there's one of the initiatives.
Yeah, I would mention again our environmental film festival, like Sebastian said, because it's a long process. And just to give you an example of when we did the first environmental film festival, we had the honor to host Dr. Sylvia Earle. I'm completely sure we will have marine biologists. You know, people were so inspired. People were listening to her talk about the blue and the ocean, and I'm sure it has created an enormous impact. Will it take a few years? Yes, it will. It's a process. It's a long process. And the other thing is, we really feel that with children and young people, the effect is the strongest. Like even these Recrearte workshops that we are doing, it's unbelievable how people get enthused, and women particularly, women who normally stay at home, housewives, they have converted this into a source of income, and they have created small businesses, so they are recycling and selling products, and we have actually certified several of them who have now become the workshop leaders. So they are giving workshops to other women who are learning the same thing. We felt with children, with youth and communities, people who are open minds, open hearts, ready to learn.